If more money means more happiness, why are some rich people still miserable? It's a puzzling question. Many of us assume that more money and more happiness. Yet we've all heard stories of millionaires who feel empty. Today, we're going to explore this happiness illusion, the idea that accumulating wealth will automatically make us happier, and find out why reality is more complicated. To do that, let's follow two people on very different paths. One chasing wealth, the other chasing purpose. Along the way, we'll uncover how income relates to life satisfaction, the comparison trap of keeping up with the Joneses, the famous $75,000 happiness myth, and why meaning often matters more than materialism. Meet Jake and Emily, two paths to happiness. Meet Jake. From a young age, Jake believed that money was the ticket to happiness. He's the type who'd say, "Once I'm a millionaire, I'll have it made." Jake equates success with a high salary, dreaming of sports cars, luxury homes, and exotic vacations. He starts his career in finance, determined to climb the income ladder as fast as possible. In his mind, wealth, happiness, and the more money he makes, the better life will be. Now meet Emily. Emily values purpose over paycheck. She wants to make a comfortable living, sure, but more importantly, she wants her work to feel meaningful. Instead of a high-powered corporate job, she becomes a teacher, a job she's passionate about, even if it doesn't pay a fortune, or perhaps starts a small business built around her creative talent. Emily's philosophy is, I don't need to be rich, I just want to love what I do and have good people around me. She's chasing fulfillment rather than dollars. At age 25, both Jake and Emily are starting out in life. Jake lands a well-paying job at a big firm. Emily takes a lower-paying role at a community organization. Initially, both feel optimistic. Jake's first big paycheck makes him feel on top of the world. He can finally afford a nicer apartment and a new car. Emily, despite a modest salary, finds joy in her work. She's excited to make a difference and enjoys the daily sense of purpose. They're both happy for now, each in their own way. Income versus life satisfaction. As the years go by, Jake's income soars. By 30, he's earned multiple promotions and doubled his salary. Each raise brings a rush of excitement and a burst of pride. Jake's life satisfaction, the way he evaluates his life overall, keeps rising with his income. And research backs this up. Studies have found that higher income does improve life satisfaction. In fact, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman famously noted that high income buys you more life satisfaction. You feel more successful. But it doesn't guarantee day-to-day happiness. We'll get to that catch in a moment. For Jake, making more money means he can afford the things he once only dreamt of. By 35, he buys a big house in an upscale neighborhood. On the outside, it looks like he's made it. He's proud of his achievements and certainly satisfied with the lifestyle his money provides. Gourmet dinners, the latest iPhone, luxury vacations. Life evaluation tends to rise steadily with income, and Jake exemplifies that. He often thinks, I've come so far, earning way more than I used to, I should be happy. Meanwhile, Emily's income grows more slowly. She's not poor by any means. Over time, she gets pay increases too, maybe reaching around $60,000 a year in her late 30s. She can cover her needs and even splurges occasionally, but she lives relatively simply. Yet Emily's day-to-day happiness is quite high. She genuinely enjoys her daily routine, the interactions with her students or customers, the feeling that her work matters. She has a close circle of friends and spends weekends with family. Her life satisfaction in a material sense is moderate. She sometimes wonders if she's successful by society's standards, but she rarely feels unhappy in the day-to-day. She finds joy in little things, a coffee with a friend, a hobby, a good book. Her emotional well-being is nourished by meaning and relationships more than money. Now, here's where things get interesting. As Jake's salary climbed into the six figures, he expected his day-to-day happiness to skyrocket. Initially, yes, having more money reduced a lot of stress. No more worrying about bills or credit card debt. Research shows that low income can indeed cause emotional pain and stress, amplifying misfortunes like illness or divorce. So when Jake moved from scraping by in his early 20s to making a comfortable income, his happiness did improve. He felt relief and security. Money does buy a degree of happiness when it lifts you out of hardship. However, as Jake's income went from comfortable to truly wealthy, he noticed something unsettling. The happiness boost from each raise didn't last very long. When he got that $20,000 bonus, he was ecstatic, but a month later, he was already yearning for the next big payout. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. As your income rises, your expectations and desires rise too, so you quickly adapt to your new level of wealth. In Jake's case, as soon as he bought a luxury car, it became the new normal. Soon he started eyeing an even more expensive car. According to the hedonic treadmill theory, when a person makes more money, their expectations increase in tandem, resulting in no permanent gain in happiness. In other words, you get used to the nice things and then take them for granted. By his 40s, Jake is earning more than he ever imagined. Let's say $250,000 a year. Yet he's surprised to find that his day-to-day mood isn't that much better than when he made far less. Sure, life is more comfortable materially, but he still gets stressed, still feels pressured at work, and sometimes even bored or unfulfilled. This aligns with what that famous 2010 Princeton study found. Day-to-day happiness, what researchers call emotional well-being, increases as income rises, but only up to a point around $75,000 per year. After that, higher income doesn't add much daily happiness. You won't laugh more or enjoy your activities much more. Just because you go from a 75K income to 175K. High income improves life evaluation, thinking you've got a successful life, but not emotional well-being beyond a certain point. Jake is learning this firsthand. He has a platinum credit card and a house with more rooms than he uses. Yet, he often finds himself oddly unsatisfied or asking, now what? Emily, on the other hand, never hit that $75,000 threshold. Her salary peaked below it, yet she reports being happy most days. She doesn't have the high life evaluation that Jake's wealth gives him. She sometimes jokes that her bank account is nothing impressive, but her emotional well-being is solid. She has enough for comfort, and beyond that, she focuses on the non-monetary aspects of life that bring her joy. The comparison trap. Keeping up with the Joneses. One big reason more money doesn't always equal more happiness is the comparison trap, better known as keeping up with the Joneses. And Jake falls right into it. Here's how. Jake moves into a neighborhood of affluent professionals. He drives a Tesla, which made him happy, until he noticed his neighbor has a fancier Porsche. Suddenly, Jake's car doesn't shine as bright. At work, Jake was proud of his salary until he found out a colleague with a similar role earns 20K more. Now he feels underpaid. No matter how much Jake earns or buys, he always finds someone with more, and it gnaws at him. Humans are naturally comparative. We tend to gauge our success not by absolute standards, but relative to those around us. Among Jake's circle, a lot of people are rich, so to him, being rich feels normal. He constantly has to move up relative to others to feel better off. As soon as he gets a raise, he compares himself to a higher benchmark. Maybe an old college friend who founded a startup and made millions, and then he feels behind again. It's a never-ending race. This comparison game takes a toll on Jake's happiness. Remarkably, studies show that viewing money in purely comparative terms is a recipe for unhappiness. One psychologist noted that the most noticeable impact of money on happiness is often negative, because of envy and comparison. The ultra-rich might get a tiny happiness bump from feeling above others, but those with less can feel miserable when they compare themselves to wealthier peers. In Jake's case, even though he is wealthy, he doesn't compare himself to the average American. He compares up to the super wealthy, effectively turning himself into a have-not among billionaires. As a result, his increased wealth isn't making him as happy as it should. It's often making him feel insufficient. The bar for enough keeps getting higher. Emily faces comparison pressures too, but she handles them differently. Some of her college friends went on to high-paying tech jobs. When she meets them at reunions, she could feel inferior talking about her humble teacher's salary. But Emily reminds herself that her life's richness isn't measured by her bank balance. She focuses on what she has that money can't buy. A loving family, students who appreciate her, weekends spent hiking and painting. Sure, sometimes she daydreams about what it'd be like to have a bigger house or luxury travel. But she doesn't let those thoughts consume her. She consciously avoids the comparison trap. On social media, when she sees others flaunting expensive dinners or new gadgets, she knows that chasing those outward symbols of success can be endless. If you constantly measure your life against others' highlight reels, you'll never feel truly content. As the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. In economic terms, Jake is learning that happiness is often more about relative income than absolute income. He might be in the top 5% of earners nationally, but if he's in the lower half of earners in his social circle, he feels poor by comparison. This insight is echoed by research. We only feel rich if we're wealthier than those we compare ourselves to, and we feel poor if we're not. Unfortunately for Jake, he's chosen a high-wealth environment where he'll always find someone richer. It's an unwinnable game, a psychological treadmill that keeps him chasing the Joneses at the expense of peace of mind. The $75,000 myth. You might have heard of the idea that money can't buy happiness beyond an income of about $75,000 a year. This idea became popular after that 2010 study by Kahneman and Angus Deaton, which found that day-to-day happiness peaked around $75K for Americans. And beyond that, extra income didn't make people any happier on a daily basis. In other words, once you had enough money to be comfortable, pay the bills, have some security and leisure, a bigger paycheck didn't boost your mood. This finding was widely reported, and many took it to mean there's a strict happiness cap at $75K. It was often quoted as if, make $75,000 and you've maxed out your happiness potential. We'll call this the $75,000 happiness myth. Jake actually remembers reading an article about that study. At one point, when he hit roughly that income, he wondered, have I reached peak happiness? Is it all downhill from here? Of course, being an ambitious guy, he didn't stop striving for more money. And as we saw, his life satisfaction kept increasing with his salary. He felt more successful, but his daily mood gains indeed leveled off. The science behind the 75K figure suggested that once basic needs and a certain comfort level are met, more money yields diminishing returns in happiness. However, recent research has added a twist to this story. In 2021 and 2023, new studies by Matthew Killingsworth in collaboration with Kahneman himself challenged the idea of a hard 75K happiness ceiling. Using experience sampling data where people reported their feelings in real time via an app, Killingsworth found that for most people, happiness does keep rising with income, even beyond $75,000. In fact, in a 2023 paper, they discovered that on average, larger incomes are associated with ever-increasing levels of happiness for the majority. So, did the original study get it wrong? Not exactly. It turns out the 2010 result was capturing a subset of people who were unhappy no matter what. The newer research found that about 15% of people are income insensitive. Beyond a certain income, around 100K, their happiness plateaued. These tend to be folks who have other life issues, health problems, relationship troubles, mental health challenges, such that money can't fix their unhappiness. As the researchers put it, this may represent the point beyond which the miseries that remain are not alleviated by high income. Heartbreak, grief, depression, etc. don't vanish with a fat bank account. Jake might be an example of this unhappy minority. By all financial metrics, he's doing great, far past 75K, even past 100K. Yet he's not much happier, perhaps due to stress and that constant comparison habit. One of the study authors, Killingsworth, said something that hits home. If you're rich and miserable, more money won't help. Penn today. To penn.edu. For Jake, throwing money at the problem isn't working. After a point, another raise, another bonus, another sports car won't fill the void. On the flip side, the research also noted there's about 30% of people, the very happiest group, who get even more happiness as they earn more beyond six figures. These might be individuals who use money in fulfilling ways, or simply those who are already very positive. The majority, about 55%, have a linear increase. More income steadily adds some happiness, and that unhappy 15% flatline after a point. So, what's the takeaway on the $75,000 myth? Essentially, money can buy some happiness, but it's not a guarantee for everyone. There isn't a one-size-fits-all cutoff where money suddenly loses all its benefit. For most people, more money does help to a degree. It can afford better healthcare, convenience, experiences, but its power to boost happiness weakens once you're comfortably middle class. And crucially, if you're unhappy at heart, like Jake with his inner struggles, simply earning more won't magically fix your life. Money is not a cure for loneliness, depression, or a lack of purpose. As Jake realizes, no salary can buy a feeling of meaning or genuine self-worth. Emily, following the discussion, might joke, "Well, I haven't made 75K yet, so I guess I still have room for more happiness." But in truth, Emily exemplifies that happiness can come from non-monetary sources, long before you hit any income threshold. She has what researchers might call emotional wealth, something money can't easily supply. Which brings us to our final and perhaps most important point, meaning versus materialism. What truly makes us happy? By their mid-40s, Jake and Emily's lives look very different. Jake has an impressive investment portfolio and all the trappings of success. A seven-figure net worth, a vacation home, a luxury SUV. Emily has a modest savings account, a cozy home filled with family photos, and a trusty second-hand car. Now, who do you think feels more fulfilled and happy with their life? If you guessed Emily, you're right. The reason is simple. Emily invested in meaning, while Jake invested in material things. This isn't to say money has no value for happiness. It does, especially up to a point. But money by itself, without a sense of purpose or positive relationships, often rings hollow. Psychologists have found that making money your primary goal can actually backfire on well-being. One study noted that people who are heavily motivated by money tend to be less happy and even have poorer mental health. It appears that chasing material success for its own sake can be a trap. You achieve the goal, money, status, but discover it didn't give you the deep satisfaction you craved. This is exactly Jake's predicament. He spent 2 decades laser-focused on wealth, working 60-hour weeks, networking, grinding, and he got the wealth. But in doing so, he sacrificed other aspects of life. He missed a lot of family gatherings and lost touch with old friends. He didn't cultivate hobbies that bring joy. He rarely had time to volunteer or contribute to something larger than himself. In short, he fed his bank account, but starved his soul. Emily's approach was the opposite. She certainly cared about financial stability. Everyone has to pay the bills. But beyond that threshold, she prioritized things like community, passion, and relationships. She chose a career she found meaningful, and that daily sense of purpose became a wellspring of happiness for her. She also had more free time and mental space to invest in friendships and family. If you asked her what her proudest achievements are, she'd mention the lives she touched and the memories she made, not the money in her wallet. By nurturing these non-material riches, Emily ended up with a life she finds deeply satisfying, even without luxury items or a high-status job. The contrast between Jake and Emily mirrors findings from one of the longest happiness studies ever conducted. The Harvard study of adult development, which followed people for 80+ years, found that close relationships, more than money or fame, are what keep people happy throughout their lives. Strong relationships protected people from life stresses and helped delay mental and physical decline far more than how much money they had. In other words, love and connection trump luxuries when it comes to true well-being. Emily, with her close-knit family and friends, is living proof of this principle. Jake, who neglected relationships in favor of work, feels the absence. Despite his riches, he often feels lonely and isolated. Purpose is another priceless ingredient for happiness. Think about it. If you have a sense of meaning, a reason to get up in the morning that excites you or makes you feel that you're contributing to something valuable, that feeling sustains you through ups and downs. Emily's purpose was educating and helping others. That gave her a reservoir of fulfillment that money can't buy. Jake's job, while lucrative, didn't provide that intrinsic reward. It was a means to an end, earning money, not a passion. He now realizes that without a sense of purpose, all the money in the world can leave you feeling empty. There's also the difference in how Jake and Emily spend their money. Jake spent a lot on things. Electronics, cars, expensive watches. These gave him short-lived joy. Emily spent on experiences, dinners with loved ones, modest vacations with her husband, even the time she took unpaid leave to care for a sick relative. Research suggests that experiential purchases, like trips, activities, learning new skills, tend to bring more lasting happiness than material purchases. This is partly because we adapt to objects quickly, but experiences become part of our identity and memories. Emily's scrapbook of experiences gives her joy whenever she reminisces, whereas Jake's 3-year-old luxury car doesn't thrill him anymore like it did on day one. Ultimately, Emily built a life around what mattered to her: meaning, service, love, and that paid off in happiness. Jake built a life around making money, and he's finding that wealth feels hollow without warmth and purpose. Conclusion: why more money doesn't always make you happier. So, if more money means more happiness, why are rich people still miserable? Because happiness isn't as simple as a number in a bank account. Money does matter for happiness. Up to a point, it can buy comfort, security, and opportunities that do increase happiness, especially when you've had less. But money has diminishing returns. After achieving a comfortable life, piling up more cash has a weaker effect on your emotional well-being. Chasing ever more wealth can even reduce happiness if it leads to stress, sacrificed relationships, or endless social comparison. Jake learned this the hard way. He fell for the happiness illusion, believing that just a bit more money would solve his problems. But beyond a certain point, his unhappiness wasn't due to income. It was due to deeper issues money couldn't fix. As one study concluded, if you're rich and miserable, more money won't help. In Jake's case, he needed meaning, balance, and connection, none of which came bundled with his paychecks. Emily, in contrast, teaches us that enough is enough. Once you have enough money to live decently, extra happiness comes from non-monetary things: relationships, purpose, personal growth, health. These are the things that truly enrich our lives. Money is just a tool. It can enable happiness, for example, buying you time or experiences, or alleviating hardship, but it's not the source of happiness in itself. As researcher Matthew Killingsworth put it, money is not the secret to happiness, but it can probably help a bit. The real secrets to happiness lie elsewhere. Next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'll be happy when I have more money," remember Jake and Emily's story. Yes, money can improve your life, but it's not a magic happiness ticket. Beware of the illusion that more zeros on your paycheck will automatically equal more joy. Instead, focus on what you truly value. Don't let keeping up with the Joneses steal your joy. Invest in your relationships, pursue a purpose that lights you up, and take care of your mental and physical health. Those are investments that pay dividends in happiness, far beyond what any bonus or raise can deliver. In the end, Jake is starting to change. He's dialing back on overtime to spend time with his family and exploring hobbies he set aside. He's even considering a career shift to do work he finds more meaningful, even if it pays less. And you know what? He's feeling happier for it. As for Emily, she's content as ever. Maybe not rich by Jake's standards, but rich in all the ways that matter. The happiness illusion taught us this: money matters, but more money doesn't always mean more happiness. True happiness comes from balancing material comfort with the things money can't buy: contentment, connection, and a sense of purpose. So if you seek a happier life, be like Emily. Value money as a useful tool, but don't make it your master. The goal isn't to have the most money, but to have a life that is meaningful, loving, and well-lived. That's the kind of wealth that truly makes you happy.